Greetings class, welcome to Duel Academy. Professor Rivas here, and today is day 1 of your Duel Academy Orientation. Today we'll be discussing the basic rules of duel monsters. By now, you should already be registered in Duel Academy and should have taken the entrance exam to see your rank. If you haven't, it's okay. Just follow the link below to get started with your Duel Academy experience. Without further ado, get your deck, get your game on, and let's get started. So what is Yu-Gi-Oh? With the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, you can take part in the exciting card game action seen in the family of Yu-Gi-Oh! TV and comic mega hits. For those who don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually started off as a Japanese manga and then later became an anime. If you haven't already, I'd recommend reading the manga, watching the anime, or both. So how do you play the game? 2 players duel each other using a variety of monster, spell, and trap cards to defeat their opponent's monsters and be the first to drop the other's life points to 0. Although the premise of the game is simple, it actually takes quite a bit of strategy to win a duel. You'll see. You may be asking yourself, what do I need to play? Well, first things first, you'll need a deck. Your main deck will consist of 40 to 60 cards, 40 being the minimum and 60 being the maximum. Also, you can have a maximum of 3 copies of a card in your main deck, extra deck, and side deck combined. Unless, of course, the card is on the ban list. Yes, there is a ban list. You see, some cards are either printed overpowered, while others fit into strategies that become overpowered. The ban list exists to try to keep balance in the game. A card could be forbidden, which means you cannot have any copies in your decks, limited, which means you could have 1 copy in your decks, or semi-limited, which means you could have up to 2 copies in your decks. Now, statistically speaking, you want to try to keep your deck close to the 40 card minimum. Having a deck with too many cards makes it hard to draw your best cards when you need them. Now that you know about the main deck, let's discuss the extra deck. The extra deck consists of your Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Link monsters. These monsters can be used during the game if you meet their special requirements. The extra deck can be from 0 to 15 cards. Also, these cards are not counted toward the 40 card minimum limit of your main deck. Although an extra deck isn't required, having one can be beneficial to increase the number and effectiveness of your strategies. Now it's time to discuss the last type of deck, the side deck. To understand the side deck, you must first understand the difference between a duel and a match. A duel is just 1 game, while a match is best 2 out of 3. Therefore, the side deck is a separate deck of cards you can use to change your deck during a match. After each duel in a match, you can swap any card from your side deck with a card from your main deck and/or extra deck to customize your strategy against your opponent. The number of cards in your side deck must not exceed 15. The number of cards in your side deck before and after you swap any cards must be exactly the same. Side decks are beneficial if your main and extra decks are having trouble with your opponent's decks. Simply switch out the cards that you don't need with the cards that you do need. So what else may you need? Well, certain cards require a coin or dice to activate their effects, so having some on hand wouldn't be a bad idea. You may also need a calculator to make calculations throughout the game. However, I recommend keeping track of life points on a sheet of paper to have a physical record of points and to keep notes throughout the game. Last but not least, I'd recommend investing in card sleeves to protect your cards. Next up, we have the game mat. Like a manga, we're going to read it from right to left. On the bottom right corner is the deck zone where you place your main deck. Above it, you have the graveyard. Cards that are destroyed and cards that have their effects fully resolved go here. To the left of the graveyard, you have the 5 main monster zones. That's of course where you place your monsters. Below that are the 5 spell and trap zones, where you place your spells and traps. We won't focus on those pendulum zones just yet. To the left of the spell and trap zones, you have the extra deck zone, where you place your extra deck. Above that, you have the field zone, where you place specific spells called field spells. Lastly, you have the extra monster zones at the top. We will discuss those in the future. Buying a starter or structure deck will come with a mat. However, if possible, I recommend investing on a rubber mat, which can be purchased online. Next, we're going to learn how to read a monster card. Number 1 is the card name, which is of course the name of the card. Number 2 is the level of the monster. A monster's level can range from 1 to 12. Number 3, we have the attribute. There are 6 basic attributes: dark, light, earth, water, fire, wind, and 1 special attribute, divine. Number 4 is the type of monster. These include dragon, spellcaster, machine, insect, etc. Number 5 is the card number, which just tells you which set it comes from. Number 6 is the attack and defense points. A monster can either be in attack mode or defense mode. If the monster is in attack mode, you focus on the attack points. If it's in defense mode, you focus on the defense points. Number 7 is the card description, which can explain the lore of the monster or its effect. Now that we know how to read a monster, how do we summon it? The most common way to summon a monster is by a normal summon. Simply play a monster card from your hand onto the field in face-up attack position. All monsters, and most effect monsters, unless they have a specific restriction, can be summoned in this way. In general, a normal summon can only occur with the level 4 or lower monster, unless it has an effect that allows it to do otherwise. In this example, since Celtic Guardian is a level 4 monster, it is allowed to be normal summoned in face-up attack position. What happens if the attack points of the monsters in your hand aren't enough to beat your opponent's monsters? Then you may want to consider a normal set. A normal set is when you place a monster that is level 4 or lower in face-down defense mode, which means it is horizontal. When in defense mode, the monster's defense points are what matters. You can only normal summon or normal set once per turn. Therefore, if you do one, you cannot do the other. By the way, you cannot set a monster in face-up defense. You may see it in the anime, but you cannot do it in the actual game. As previously stated, you could only normal summon or normal set level 4 or lower monsters. So how do you bring out your stronger, higher leveled monsters? This is done by tribute summon. For monsters that are level 5 or higher, you must tribute at least one monster you control before the normal summon normal set. This is called a tribute summon. Monsters that are level 5 or level 6 require 1 tribute, and monsters that are level 7 or higher require 2 tributes. In the example, notice that Curse of Dragon is a level 5 monster, which means you need 1 monster to tribute. If Celtic Guardian is on your field, you can send Celtic Guardian from the field to the graveyard and tribute summon Curse of Dragon. If you have Red Eyes Black Dragon in your hand, it'll need 2 monsters to tribute since it's a level 7. If you have Axe Raider and Alligator Sword on your field, you can send them both to the graveyard and tribute summon Red Eyes. Tribute summon is also considered a normal summon, so you can only do it once per turn. The same rules that apply to a tribute summon also applies to a tribute set. The only difference is, as opposed to putting it in face-up attack mode, you would put it in face-down defense mode. You can change a face-down defense position monster into face-up attack position without using a card effect. This is called a flip summon. When you flip summon, you cannot change the monster to face-up defense position, only to face-up attack position. A monster card cannot be flip summoned in the same turn that it was set onto the field. You cannot use monster effects until they are face-up. The cool thing about flip summons is that you can do them as many times as you want during your turn. The last type of summoning we'll discuss today is special summoning. In today's game, special summoning is the most popular summoning method. This is because extra deck monsters that can be special summoned, which include Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, and Link monsters, are some of the strongest monsters in the game. Other types of monsters like pendulum monsters and ritual monsters can also be special summoned. There are also effect monsters that can special summon themselves and other monsters, as well as spells and traps that can initiate a special summon. Also, there is no limit to how many times you can special summon during a turn. Special summon monsters can also be in face-up attack or face-up defense. You'll learn more about the types of summoning methods in future classes. Thank you so much for joining me on the Day 1 orientation. Day 2 will focus on spells, traps, and the rules to the game. Hope you have a great day, and class dismissed.